In 2021, journalist Eleanor Bryce vanished while investigating an abandoned mill in the forgotten town of Black Hollow, West Virginia. For 2 years, there was nothing, no leads, no trace. Then, a hiker stumbled on a flash drive buried near the mill. What was on it revealed the last moments of her investigation and a discovery no one was supposed to find. Black Hollow, West Virginia, a name once printed on mill trucks and school uniforms, now erased from every map. It sat at the base of the Appalachian Ridge, a tight-knit logging town built around the Hollis and Crane paper mill. For most of the 20th century, its machinery never stopped humming. Then, in 1987, the hum went silent. A chemical spill, or that's what the company called it, poisoned the creek and drove everyone out. The town emptied almost overnight. Houses were left with dishes still on the tables, clothes still hanging on lines. No official cleanup ever happened. By the mid-1990s, Black Hollow was reclaimed by the forest. For decades, no one went back, except trespassers, ghost hunters, urban explorers, and eventually, a journalist. Her name was Eleanor Bryce, 34, an award-winning investigative reporter for a small but respected regional magazine. Known for her calm voice and persistence, she made a name exposing forgotten industrial crimes across Appalachia. Her editor called her the kind of reporter who walks into places long after the police stop caring. In October 2021, she set her sights on Black Hollow. The mill closure had become just another cautionary footnote in state archives, but Eleanor suspected there was more. Missing corporate records, altered death certificates, and an unusual pattern of tax payments linked to a company that shouldn't exist anymore. Locals in the neighboring county remembered the name. They warned her off gently at first. Some laughed it away. Others grew quiet when she pressed for details. There were stories about how the ground still gave off heat in winter, or how machinery could be heard running deep underground when fog rolled in. She arrived anyway, checked into a cheap motel outside Fayetteville, drove up the old service road alone. Locals saw her at the diner, jotting notes, polite but distracted. They said she looked tired, like someone thinking too far ahead. Her work pattern was steady. Days spent photographing the ruins, evenings writing reports to her editor. She emailed colleagues about unusual soil activity near the old foundation. A few texts hinted that she'd uncovered something bigger than expected, something buried but recent. On the night of October 16, 2021, she sent her final message. It was short, confident, almost excited. "I think I found something under the mill floor. I'll send photos tomorrow." But tomorrow never came. When she missed 2 deadlines, her editor tried calling. No answer. Then came a welfare check request to the county sheriff. Officers found her rental car 3 days later, just off the access road that led to the old paper mill. The scene was strange, the driver's door open, the engine cold. Her backpack was in the back seat, laptop gone. Her camera bag sat on the ground beside the car, unzipped. Inside were extra batteries, lens caps, a notebook with field sketches, but no main camera, no phone, no trace of her. Deputies searched the woods for days. Helicopters scanned the valley. Cadaver dogs tracked her scent only 50 yards before it disappeared at the edge of the mill's concrete foundation. There were no drag marks, no blood, no broken branches. Just a pair of footprints, hers, that stopped abruptly on dry earth. The case should have gone national. But Black Hollow was hard to find, harder to care about. A missing journalist wasn't new. And besides, the area had a history of accidents. Hikers gone missing, hunters found dead in abandoned shafts. The official report listed her as missing under suspicious circumstances. Then silence. Months passed. The magazine ran a memorial article calling her a light for lost voices. Her family held a small vigil. Online, a few armchair detectives and podcast hosts picked up the story, connecting it to other disappearances in post-industrial ghost towns. But without evidence, the trail went cold. 2 years later, in early spring 2023, a hiker cutting through the overgrown mill site made a discovery. Half buried near the cracked foundation was a weatherproof plastic bag. Inside, a flash drive, mud-stained but intact. When law enforcement analyzed it, the timestamps matched the night Eleanor disappeared. The drive contained a few corrupted files, fragments of video and audio logs, and 3 grainy photographs from inside the mill. One image showed a faint glow beneath the warped floorboards, as if something metallic reflected light from below. Another showed what looked like disturbed concrete, freshly broken, though the site had been abandoned for decades. The last photo was a still frame from her video, the bottom half of a person's leg, standing in the corner of the shot, just before the camera cut out. Federal agents confirmed the data was authentic, unaltered, and recorded on Eleanor's missing camera. But there was one detail no one could explain: a brief, low voice on the final audio log. A man's voice, whispering close to the mic. "You shouldn't have come here." Then static. That one sentence reignited the case. Investigators reopened the file, journalists flooded forums, and conspiracy channels labeled it the Black Hollow incident. But in truth, no one knew what Eleanor had found, or why the company that owned the mill still paid property taxes 35 years after it dissolved. The woods around the site remain closed off today, marked only by a rusted chain and a faded warning sign. "No trespassing, contaminated ground." And when fog sweeps through the hollow, locals say the air hums again, like something beneath the earth still running, still waiting to be found. When the flash drive surfaced, the story broke open again like an old wound. News crews returned to Fayette County, reporters with crisp suits and haunted eyes. But what drew them wasn't just the missing journalist. It was what she might have uncovered. Forensic analysts combed through the files line by line. There were audio spikes, distorted frequencies, and GPS metadata that placed Eleanor deep beneath the mill's service platform, an area that, according to every blueprint, shouldn't exist. The official diagrams ended at the ground level, but Eleanor's device registered coordinates 8 meters below. That discovery changed everything. Search crews returned to Black Hollow with ground-penetrating radar. What they found was a hollow cavity under the old mill's foundation, wide, circular, and sealed by reinforced concrete. The equipment picked up faint metallic reflections. Whatever was buried there wasn't natural. The sheriff's department tried to excavate, but the ground collapsed within hours of drilling. Toxic fumes burst from the opening, enough to send 2 workers to the hospital. Operations stopped, officially for safety. But privately, investigators suspected they'd struck an illegal chemical vault from the 1980s. If the company dumped waste to cut costs, it would explain the disappearances, the sudden evacuation, the falsified reports. Except there was a problem. The samples pulled from the soil weren't from the 1980s. They were new, less than 3 years old. That detail never made it to the press. The files were sealed. The EPA stepped in quietly, citing contamination control. Within weeks, the site was fenced off again, guarded at night. Locals whispered that government trucks came through after midnight, headlights off, hauling something heavy away from the mill. No one saw what it was. But after that, the hum returned, low, mechanical, like machinery turning beneath the earth. Eleanor's family pushed for answers. Her sister, a teacher in Charleston, released parts of her emails to the media. In one draft, dated a day before her disappearance, Eleanor wrote about records not matching human counts. That phrase became a point of obsession for online sleuths. Some believed it meant unreported deaths among mill workers. Others thought she'd found evidence of a secret project buried beneath the industrial site. The deeper they dug, the stranger it got. Property tax documents showed Hollis and Crane paper still listed as active in a Delaware registry. Payments had been made every fiscal year, traced to a blind trust based out of Zurich. No officers, no contact address, no human names attached. just signatures marked with an H and a circle. It didn't help that one of the flash drive's photographs showed a symbol etched into the mill's concrete, the same circle with an H inside it. It was faint, but visible under ultraviolet enhancement. Investigators couldn't dismiss it as coincidence. Meanwhile, people in the nearby town began reporting power surges, lights flickering at night, humming sounds that faded when approached. One farmer swore his generator turned itself on at 3 a.m., despite being disconnected. Theories multiplied: secret lab, buried generator, cover-up. By midsummer 2023, 2 more people went missing near the area: a freelance videographer documenting Eleanor's case, and a local man scavenging for copper wire. Both vanished within a quarter-mile of the same foundation. Their vehicles were found intact, engines cold, doors open, just like Eleanor's. Authorities called them accidents. Locals called them a pattern. Then came the biggest twist: a detail unearthed by an independent podcaster analyzing police body cam footage from the 2021 search. In one frame, less than a second long, a reflection appeared on a rusted metal surface, a silhouette behind a tree, tall, motionless, watching the officers. When enhanced, the image showed something impossible: a man wearing a Hollis and Crane uniform, the same style issued before the factory closed in 1987. The sheriff's department denied tampering. They said it was lens flare. But experts disagreed. The outline was too distinct, the proportions human. That clip reignited public frenzy. Theories turned wild: time slip, survivor, underground cult. But those who knew the area didn't laugh. They remembered something darker. In the final months before the shutdown, rumors spread that the company had used its workers for disposal operations. Men went missing, payroll records were altered, and families were paid hush money. When the mill closed, no one counted how many never left. Eleanor may have stumbled onto their remains. Or worse, evidence that someone had been keeping the site active long after it was declared dead. By autumn, journalists, investigators, and amateur sleuths swarmed the region. The FBI reopened the file under pressure from Washington. Drones were sent again over the hollow. One of them captured an aerial anomaly: a perfect circular heat signature emanating from beneath the collapsed foundation. It pulsed intermittently, like a machine breathing. The footage was classified within 48 hours. Officially, the agency reported no new findings. Unofficially, several investigators resigned, citing ethical discomfort. The last to leave, a field technician named Brewer, later told a colleague, "There's something under there that's not supposed to be." And still, there was no trace of Eleanor Bryce. But one detail remained impossible to ignore. The coordinates where the flash drive was found matched the same spot where her last GPS ping had gone dead. The same exact point. That wasn't chance. Someone, or something, had placed it there on purpose. And in doing so, they'd reopened a story that Black Hollow had spent 40 years trying to bury. The night Eleanor disappeared had been eerily quiet, a fog clinging low over the hollow like a living thing. Satellite imagery later confirmed that no cars or trucks had entered the access road after dusk, yet her rental remained abandoned 3 days later, engine cold, doors open, her gear partially scattered. The scene defied explanation: no footprints beyond the car, no drag marks, no broken brush. It was as if she had simply vanished into the earth itself. The flash drive found 2 years later revealed what investigators could only reconstruct in fragments. Eleanor's voice, steady at first, guided through her discoveries. She spoke of a hollow beneath the mill floor, a space that didn't appear on any official plans. Her words suggested anticipation, like she had stumbled onto something enormous. Then came a metallic clang, a low rumble under the concrete. Something moved beneath her feet. The recordings captured a faint male voice, calm but deliberate. "You shouldn't have come here." There was no screaming, no struggle. Only the hum of machinery and the quiet steps of someone, or something, moving just beyond the camera's frame. The photographs on the drive were equally unnerving. One showed a cracked section of floorboards, faintly glowing from a light below. Another, a blurred shadow stretching across the corridor, suggested the presence of a person taller than any local could remember. The final photo depicted a faint shimmer of metal under the concrete, possibly a hatch or vent. Forensic analysis of the mill site revealed freshly disturbed concrete in one section, despite the building being abandoned for decades. Soil samples suggested recent activity. Traces of industrial chemicals consistent with Eleanor's field notes were found, but none dated older than 3 years. Someone had returned to the mill long after it should have been abandoned and disturbed its floor. Investigators could only speculate about what happened next. A hidden compartment, a secret chamber, or worse, some organized, deliberate method of removing her. There were no signs of conventional kidnapping. No struggle. It was as if the building itself had swallowed her, leaving only the trace of her GPS signal and the scattered gear. Later reports described additional anomalies. Witnesses in nearby towns reported lights beneath the mill at odd hours, blue-white flashes visible through cracks. Occasional humming, low and mechanical, rose from the earth. Farmers and hikers recalled hearing muffled voices in the wind, though no human activity could be traced. All of it painted a picture of a crime beyond normal comprehension. Eleanor's disappearance wasn't random, it was precise. Someone or something had intentionally erased her from the hollow. The site was still active, still dangerous, and still capable of hiding its secrets decades after the mill closed. When her ID card and field journal were recovered from the car, they added nothing beyond what was already terrifying. Her meticulous notes, partial sketches of the foundation, and scribbled warnings about what lay beneath. Every line hinted at discovery. Every observation foreshadowed the peril she encountered. By the time the FBI analyzed the flash drive, the conclusion was chilling. Eleanor Bryce had entered a site that was no longer merely abandoned. It was alive with activity, monitored, and capable of claiming anyone who ventured too close. And there was no evidence she ever left. The crime wasn't just her disappearance. It was a system designed to erase the curious, and Eleanor had triggered it. The investigation into Eleanor Bryce's disappearance began with confusion and ended in quiet frustration. Detectives from the Fayette County Sheriff's Office were the first on scene, treating it as a standard missing person case. But nothing about Black Hollow was standard. The car sat on an unmarked service road that didn't appear on GPS. The mill had been condemned for years. Even the deed was registered to a company that, on paper, had dissolved in 1998. The early search focused on the forest. Teams swept through the trees for days, marking off areas with yellow tape, tracing faint trails of shoe impressions that always stopped abruptly near the river. Drones found nothing but thick canopy. Dogs caught a scent once, only to lose it at the mill's perimeter fence. Detective Marlon Green led the case, a veteran investigator who had seen nearly everything. Yet Black Hollow unsettled him. His official notes described inconsistent readings from GPS trackers, radios cutting out when officers approached the mill, and a strange mechanical hum echoing from beneath the ground that vibrated through the soles of their boots. The mill itself became the focus. It was fenced off, sealed with federal warnings about contamination, but Green pushed for access. Inside, investigators found the remnants of a life paused mid-movement. Eleanor's tripod still standing, aimed toward a cracked section of floor. A faint layer of dust coated everything, except the metal hatch embedded in the ground. That surface was clean, recently touched. Forensics found no fingerprints, no fibers, no sign of struggle. But the soil beneath the hatch told another story. Samples contained mercury and unidentified industrial compounds. More alarmingly, The ground temperature was several degrees warmer than the air above. Something below was generating heat. The county called in environmental engineers. Within 48 hours, they sealed the site again, citing safety violations. Green protested, but the order came from above, state level, possibly federal. The files were classified as hazardous materials investigation. Within a week, he was told to stand down. Off the record, Green continued. He tracked Eleanor's last digital activity, an encrypted email draft she never sent. The address was to a contact at Arcadian Holdings, a company with no active registration but millions in dormant assets. The name matched one buried in old Hollis and Crane records tied to chemical storage infrastructure. The email subject line read simply, Sublevel 9. When Green followed the financial trail, it looped through shell corporations stretching from West Virginia to Illinois. Every few years, a quiet transaction renewed the property taxes for the Black Hollow site. Always on time, always from the same Chicago P.O. box. No person, no signature, just automated payments. Weeks later, another clue emerged. A local scrap dealer came forward, claiming to have salvaged metal panels near the river shortly after the disappearance. They bore radiation hazard symbols and serial codes that traced back to Hollis and Crane's 1984 expansion project, the same year several factory workers went missing. The company's internal memos referred to containment infrastructure integrity and core pressure anomalies. Green tried to contact surviving employees. Most refused to speak. One former maintenance worker, now elderly and living in another state, sent him an anonymous note. If she went under, she's not coming back. They sealed it for a reason. By 2022, federal agents took over. Their report, heavily redacted, concluded with a single line. No evidence of abduction or foul play. Site closed pending remediation. But Green noticed something chilling. The date of the report, October 15, 2021, was the same night Eleanor vanished. The report had been filed before her disappearance was even public. Months passed. The case went cold. Files were archived. But then came the discovery of the flash drive 2 years later, a clue no one expected. The recordings matched the night of her disappearance down to the timestamp. Every piece of audio, every photograph, aligned with Green's field notes. The data had been sealed away in a waterproof bag, buried near the foundation. That reopened the case. But it also opened something darker. The FBI requested access to Green's private files. Days later, his hard drive was confiscated. The agent in charge told him, "You're done with Black Hollow." He was reassigned 3 months later. The case was declared inactive. But whispers spread among law enforcement. Evidence had gone missing, digital logs deleted, witness statements edited. Someone didn't want the truth out. And then, quietly, Green vanished from public record. His social media accounts deleted. His house listed for sale. He'd simply disappeared, like Eleanor. The official investigation ended there, buried under red tape and bureaucratic silence. But those who'd been close to the case said the real investigation never stopped. It just moved underground, right where Black Hollow's secrets had always lived. 2 years after Emily Carter's disappearance, the Black Hollow case seemed destined for cold files, until the fall rains unearthed what silence had buried. In late October, a hiker found a weathered camera lodged in the roots of a fallen oak near the ravine behind the old mill. The memory card inside was miraculously intact. When authorities reviewed the footage, their assumptions shattered. The videos showed Emily following someone through the woods at dusk, whispering into her recorder. The timestamps matched the night she vanished. At first, the lens only caught fragments, a coat sleeve, a flashlight beam, a voice faintly calling her name. But near the end, the footage revealed something chilling. The figure wasn't chasing her. She was following them willingly. She seemed to know them. Investigators replayed the final clip countless times. Emily's camera trembled as she spoke softly, saying, "I have proof now. Then, just before the video cut out, a familiar voice answered, "You shouldn't have come here." That voice belonged to Sheriff Dean, the very man who had led the initial investigation. When confronted, Dean denied everything, claiming the recording was manipulated. Yet forensic analysis confirmed the voice was his, and GPS data placed his patrol truck near the ravine the same night Emily disappeared. The small town that had once trusted him watched in disbelief as the foundation of their peace began to rot. Digging further, investigators uncovered that Dean had been involved in a land cover-up connected to the Hollow's abandoned mining area. Emily had discovered that the sheriff and local developers had been falsifying environmental reports to mask illegal toxic dumping, a revelation that threatened powerful people. Her trip to Black Hollow wasn't just for a story. It was to expose a criminal operation. As the pieces aligned, a new horror surfaced. DNA recovered from the discarded cabin matched two unidentified victims from decades prior, both local reporters who had also gone missing after probing the same development company. Emily's name now joined a pattern hidden beneath years of corruption and silence. When the town's new sheriff reopened the case fully, the evidence led to a network of people, developers, officers, even town officials, who had all benefited from keeping the truth buried. Black Hollow wasn't haunted by ghosts. It was haunted by guilt. Emily had walked straight into the heart of it, believing she could bring it to light. The revelation turned Black Hollow from a quiet mystery into a national scandal. Locals whispered that the Hollow had finally spat out its secret, but for Emily's family, there was no peace, only the echo of her courage in the face of quiet evil. The footage ended abruptly, leaving one question forever unanswered. Who turned off the camera that night? The climax of Black Hollow's dark story came in the dead of winter, when frost coated the trees and the fog hung heavier than ever. The investigative team, backed by federal oversight, finally gained limited access to the mill's lower levels. Concrete floors had been partially removed, revealing the cavernous space Eleanor had hinted at in her notes. The air was thick, metallic, and carried a chemical tang that burned the throat. Inside, the investigators discovered a labyrinth of tunnels, narrow shafts, reinforced chambers, and makeshift scaffolding that seemed impossible for a mill to have contained. The scale of it suggested decades of secret construction. Everything pointed to meticulous planning, as if someone had designed the mill not for paper production, but as a containment site for something far more insidious. Among the debris, there were remnants of personal effects, old work gloves, worn boots, and fragments of notebooks. One journal, partially intact, was Eleanor's, and its final pages were smeared with wet concrete dust. Notes indicated she had discovered a sublevel labeled Sub-9, where something was stored that cannot see the light of day. Then came the sound, a low, resonant hum, vibrating through the metal beams, echoing through the tunnels. Sensors picked up heat signatures in an area that had no logical source. When investigators approached, the heat spiked, as if the system below responded to their presence. What they found next changed everything. A sealed vault, reinforced with steel, labeled only with a faded H and C insignia, had been pried open. Inside were storage containers filled with hazardous chemicals, mercury compounds, industrial solvents, and, chillingly, a number of personal belongings that belonged to people who had gone missing over the decades, including traces linked to Eleanor Bryce. The final, shocking discovery was a partially functional surveillance system. Hidden cameras, dating back decades, were connected to live feeds that had monitored the tunnels and the surrounding forest. Files indicated that the company and some local officials had watched every step of anyone who approached. Eleanor's every move, from the diner to the mill floor, had been recorded. It became clear this was never just a disappearance. Black Hollow had been a controlled environment, a living archive of secrets where surveillance, coercion, and chemical storage intersected. Those who entered without permission risked being absorbed into the system, erased from the outside world. Federal agents sealed the tunnels, evacuated the forest, and placed the mill under 24-hour watch. But the eerie truth remained. The site was active, alive with systems built to protect hidden horrors. The hum never fully disappeared. The cameras might have been disabled, but the knowledge that someone, human or otherwise, had monitored the mill for decades left a lingering fear. Eleanor Bryce had uncovered it all. Her disappearance was no accident. She had seen the mechanism in motion, and in that moment, she had become part of the pattern that Black Hollow had maintained for 40 years. The town's silence returned, heavier than before. The hollow no longer whispered, it demanded. And for anyone who knew the truth, the danger of returning, of seeking answers, was undeniable. After the tunnels were sealed and the mill secured, Black Hollow returned to its uneasy quiet. Trees creaked in the wind, and the fog rolled down the slopes like a living shroud. Officially, the investigation was closed. Eleanor Bryce was listed as missing, presumed dead, and the hazardous chemicals were cataloged and removed. Federal agencies called the case contained. But the people who had lived near the hollow, the few who remained, knew better. Lights still flickered beneath the broken windows at night. Hums vibrated through the ground when no machinery ran. And occasionally, a voice, faint, female, unmistakably human, carried on the wind, whispering words that chilled the bones of anyone who heard it. Her family held a small memorial at the edge of the forest. A lantern burned all night, casting shadows that danced across the trees. Friends and colleagues left notebooks, cameras, pens, tokens of the life Eleanor had devoted to uncovering hidden truths. They remembered her not as a victim, but as a seeker of knowledge who dared to go further than anyone else. The mill itself remained a monument to secrecy. No development, no trespassing, no rebuilding. The property taxes continued to be paid, yet no one claimed ownership. Surveillance equipment was removed, but the sense of being watched lingered like a residue, as if Black Hollow had become aware of the eyes that tried to pry into it. Investigators, journalists, and locals alike wondered if the tunnels beneath the mill were the end of it, or if the secrets, buried for decades, had simply shifted, waiting for the next person brave or foolish enough to enter. Eleanor Bryce's voice survives only in fragments, the recordings, the photographs, and the journals she left behind. Each one is a reminder that some stories are too large, too dangerous, to be fully told. Black Hollow didn't just erase a town. It erased the people who sought its truth. And yet, those echoes remain, flickering in the dark, daring anyone to look closer. Some mysteries are never solved. Some towns never truly die. And some journalists pay the ultimate price for seeking the stories that the world tries hardest to forget. The forest is still there. The fog still comes. And if you listen closely, you can almost hear a whisper, Eleanor Bryce, reminding you that some secrets don't belong to the living. If you want more chilling true crime stories that take you deep into unsolved mysteries, disappearances, and hidden secrets, make sure to subscribe. Don't miss the next story.